Well, Tracey, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful.
And it looks like you're working in treatment, right? That looks like a rehab office to me.
Yes, actually, yes. I'm working in a treatment center that I actually went through almost 2.5 years ago.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's where you went. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like full circle coming through here and being so hopeless and just like another rehab, like what's going to be different this time. And then by the grace of God, things were different and I started doing different things. And now I'm working here. Like this is my office. So it's really cool.
Where
Yeah.
is that? You're in Florida, right? Where are you?
No. Oh my gosh, no. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm in the middle of the country.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You're in the central time zone. Anytime I'm such an idiot, like as smart as I am, anytime somebody is in central time zone, I'm like, I panic. I'm like, wait, what one is that? Yeah.
It messed me up because my whole family's back on the East Coast and they're out an hour ahead of me.
So you're going that way.
Yeah. So it messes me up all the time, but it is what it is.
Or if I have a guest I think part of Alabama is central, but not all of it. And so occasionally I get a guest in Alabama and I'm like, all right. And then they don't know. Like my friend Matt Billions, I've interviewed him like 3 times over the years. He lives in Alabama. He is in central. Every time I ask him, he's like, Janine, I don't remember. Do you remember? And I'm like, bro, you live there. But anyways. So, but I know you didn't start in Missouri, right? You started.
No. Yeah, I never, since I've been in Missouri, I have not used any substances since I've been here, thank gosh.
Isn't that a good feeling?
It really is. It really, really is.
And for me too, like my houses, when I started living in places that I had never used in, because even my sober living this time, I lived in for a year, but I had used in that sober living before. So for the first year of my sobriety, I still lived somewhere where I had used. And then when I moved into my first place by myself, like renting a room, to be in that place and never have used in it was just a really good feeling. I hadn't had that in so long.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been very visual when I see, like when I go back to Philly and Jersey and I see different spots where I did things, it can be triggering in a sense, but not like, it just reminds me of those times and things that I don't want to go back to. Maybe one day I can go back to the East Coast, but right now, like I finally have found myself. I finally found a life that I love living, friends that have become like family to me out here. So it's just, I'm finally becoming an adult, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Almost 42 years old and I'm finally, living my best life. So right now I'm happy where I'm at. So I'm just truly grateful, to be dead honest.
Yeah. And I know what you mean. Like, so I used a lot in an area of North County, San Diego called Oceanside and another area called Vista. And I'm near it, but I'm not in it. But my mother still lived there for a long time. And I have 10 years, but even now, and it doesn't ever make me want to use, like you said, it's like triggering, but not really. Like I have to go over there all the time and I don't want to use, but I have told my husband, I'm like, it's a little bit less expensive there if we wanted to buy. But I have told him, I'm like, I probably don't want to live there though. Even though I have a decade sober, I don't think I want to live there. Every street. And I got clean there. I got clean in Vista, which is where I used.
God bless you.
Yeah, it's possible. It's difficult, but it's possible. And I was taking public transportation. Every bus stop, every train station, I would see a Connect, right? So it's possible, but now that I have the option, I don't really necessarily want to live there. But let's back up a little and talk about, I know it was a long ride for you to get to Missouri. So where did you grow up and how did you get started using?
I'm a Navy brat. My father was in the military for 22 years. So we moved all over up and down the East Coast. But then we ended up in New Jersey and I was all over South Jersey. So like right out of Philly and Pennsauken. Yeah, all over Washington County, different, spots. And I could never make friends, right? Like I would make friends, but then we'd move later on that year. So it was like yearly we were moving. And then when I finally moved to New Jersey, I'm very pale, I'm Irish. And I was young and I was made fun of, called Casper. And it truly affected me and I didn't realize it, but I wanted to be liked by people. The popular girls, were making fun of me. And it was, it did a lot of damage to me. So anyone that was, would be friendly to me or my friends, that was where I went. I was young and I was 12, 13 years old. And the, people that were smoking, drinking, they were hanging out with me and they were friendly to me. So, I picked up smoking. I had an older sister that was about 5 years older than me, and her friends, they smoked, drank, and all of that. And I just thought that was so cool. So guess what? I started doing it. And
You talking about cigarettes at this point?
no, I smoke cigarette. Oh gosh, girl, I'm talking about weed. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, okay.
Cigarettes. I started smoking when I was I've been an addict, alcoholic, like forever. It's always something. But this was weed and like alcohol when I was at that age. So I just thought it was like normal. That's like you party when you're a kid, right? Because I was hanging out with older. I always thought I was cool because I'm this 13-year-old girl that's hanging out with 17, 18, 19-year-olds, right? Like they want to be around me. Now I see it as a grown adult, like that's not right. But, I thought it was the coolest thing. I was going to spots. We would go to Kensington then and we would get weed, but at that time they were getting harder drugs.
Okay. So what year are we talking?
We're talking 95, 6.
Okay. Was Kensington already Kensington back then?
Yeah.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. It was just, it's gotten so much worse. It's been an open air drug market for a long time. It's just, it kind of moves a little bit. It's, it's always Kensington, but it's like different spots. Right now, it's like, I don't know right now, but when I was out there, it was like Kensington, Allegheny, and like the main streets, like, blocks off of that. But before then, it was, 15 blocks down, like it moves.
But that area has been a spot to get drugs for a long time.
Absolutely. It's like a Disney World. It's like a Disney World and it's disgusting, but it's a Disney World for addicts.
For addicts, yeah. Okay.
You can go there and get what you want and you don't need to know someone. Yeah. So I was going there with them thinking I was so cool because like I'm going and getting with these older people getting drugs. It was just pot and alcohol at that time. And I just never thought there was an issue. Well, my sister got into harder drugs. I remember thinking and telling my mom, I will never do that. Like, that's disgusting. I can't believe she's doing this to you. Like, she is just so ignorant and selfish, the things that we think. Then a little bit after I graduated, of course, the harder drugs started coming in because I was not hanging around with the best people, ecstasy, coke, like all that stuff. And I thought it was so fun. At that point in my life, I had a great childhood coming up. My parents were married. They loved me. I never needed anything. I wanted a whole hell of a lot, but, I was never in need of food, anything like that. So I never thought like I didn't have these traumas, right? Like I hear people like they're being, all the bad things. I just didn't have it. So I was like, I just like using drugs and drinking. Like it's fun. I started dating this guy when I was 17 or 18 years old. He was a little bit more experienced than me in drugs and alcohol. So we just started, we had like a summer of Heineken and then like a summer of ecstasy, but we did it compulsively all the time. Right. And didn't think it was an issue still. And then the opiates came in and that was like, not that I see it today, that it was out of control before, the opiates came in, but I know that's where it took a horrible turn. At that point, was going to college. I had graduated college.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. So you graduated high school and then you did go to college. Did you go to like a community college nearby or did you?
Yeah, community college on South Jersey.
Okay. And you graduated college?
Yes.
While drinking and doing ecstasy.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Wow. All
and
right.
It was my last semester. That was when the perks, opiates came into play and things were not unmanageable yet. Right. Like I needed them. Like I remember the first time I took a Percocet, my ex-boyfriend gave me one and he took one and I threw up and I was like, I don't like that, cause I don't like throwing up. And then like a day or two later, he goes to take another one. And I was like, give me one. And he's like, why are you doing that? I was like, I want to be fucked up with you. And he's like, what? And that's just me being codependent. That's who I, was and can be sometimes. So, of course, I was taking them more and more. And then we know how our tolerances build up. And after that build up, I was taking Percocet, every weekend and throughout the week. Luckily, in that time, I graduated from college. Then it was like party time, right? Not let's be an adult and go get a good job or anything. It was, I never had dreams, honestly. Like I wanted to do things, but I didn't think I could. But I was like doing what, society, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I was like, one day I'll figure out what I want to do.
Yeah. Where did you live during this time?
I lived with my parents, my mom and my father.
As long as you were in college, you were allowed to live with them.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. After you graduated, did you move out or did you stay with them?
No, at that point I stayed with them. My mother I was kind of a caretaker for her. She started getting sick. She had rheumatoid arthritis, osteoporosis, COPD. So I was kind of helping her, and over time her health declined. So I became more of a caretaker, and my addiction was getting worse in that, time period. But before she had gotten really sick, she was on pain medicine for those ailments. And I was stealing them from her because she was not an addict. At that time, she would take a half of a perk 5 and it would help her get out of pain. So in those times, I would steal them from her and I would take a nice amount because I would, manipulate my thinking of, well, she only takes a half. She has 120. I'll take 60 of them. She'll be fine. Right. And that's just insanity and disgusting, but that's just what I did.
Is that where you got most of the Percocets with your boyfriend during that time?
No, those were just days that we were sick. I would, go through hers, but normally we would get them from either dealers or in the beginning, we started selling them and then we would take our profit. But then our profit became, we were taking more, so we weren't making profit,
Right. Did he have a job? Did he work and have some money? Or?
Yeah, we both did at that point. So this was, I'd say probably 2004, 2005. Then we made a quick jump. Not quick jump. We went from the 5s to 10s. And then we made the jump from 10s to Oxy 80s. In my head, it's not bad. It's a pill. It's not heroin. I'm not putting a needle in my arm. So I ran with it, right? But I didn't realize I'm sniffing these oxys, and I'm buying them like crazy. I need them to work, to get out of bed. It was not that bad. I just kept on, lowering that bar of, well, I'm not doing this, right?
How did you guys get introduced to the 80s? Who showed them to you, or where did you come across them the first time?
One of our dealers, we were getting our perks from them, and they were like, I have oxys and they're cheaper. We were buying so many Percocet that they were like, why don't you just get this? It's cheaper. And we were like, why not? And we tried it once and it was like, wait, this is like taking 12 perk 10s. Like we're wasting our money. So we, of course, we didn't go back to the perks unless we had to. Someone didn't have the oxys.
And you were snorting them?
Yes. Mm-hmm. That lasted for about 2 years. On September 10th, 2009, the week before that, we were taking Oxy 80s throughout the day. And at night, we were taking Valium, not sleeping. And it was really bad that week. Well, that September 10th, I went to pick my ex up from work. And I was so tired because I hadn't slept in a week, basically. He drove. Well, while we were driving, I was asleep. He fell asleep at the wheel and drove into a pole at about 50 miles an hour. I went into a coma because where we hit in the part of the car was right into a pole right where I was. Yeah. And I was in a coma for a month. I suffered a traumatic brain injury. I had to learn how to walk and talk.
You were paralyzed when you woke up? Well, not paralyzed, but you couldn't walk. You had to relearn.
Yeah. I had to relearn how to talk. Like it was like easy words I couldn't say. And I would get so frustrated that I picked up swearing because it was easier to say a swear than to like think the process through to come up with the word. So I thought my life was over, right?
What happened to him? Did he get arrested?
Nope. Nope. He had 2 cuts on his knee. When the officer came to the hospital and talked to my father, because they all went right to the hospital, rushed to the hospital. The officer talked to my dad. He was like, do you think drugs were involved? And my dad was like, no. And my father knew that it was both of us. It wasn't just my ex. He knew we were both very bad on drugs. And at that point, my parents didn't know what to do. This is before we learned anything about addiction in our family. They just didn't know what to do. They knew I had to do it, and they're not going to put that blame on him. I got out of the coma and I was I was a 27, 8-year-old adult, and I had to be home with my family. I couldn't drive. I couldn't do anything. So I thought my life was over. I was trached, so I had this scar on my throat. I was internally bleeding. So I have this like scar up my belly. So I'm like, my stomach's never going to look the same. I had this trach thing, they did like this brain surgery. So they had to shave my head. So I had to cut my hair off. So it was just like, everything was just like, I'm never going to be the same. So like giving up, right? Plus the doctors wrote me for pain meds. So now I can legally get them, right? So like, this is perfect. And I kind of ran with that. That was 2009. And about a year and a half after that, I realized, I needed help. I just didn't, again, understand addiction or anything. So I remember going to my first intensive outpatient, and I went there and I took a lot of perks, and I started abusing this migraine medicine that they gave me. And I would overtake the migraine medicine and it would make you feel like you were drunk, but you didn't smell like liquor. So I was just all fucked up at my IOP, and they were like, we can't have you here if this is how you're going to be. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm allowed to take Percocet because I have this pain. So like, you have to help me not do other drugs. But the Percocet was the issue also,
What made you think you needed to go to IOP? So you said a year and a half in, you realized you needed some help. What made you start thinking that?
It wasn't even me. It was my family.
Okay. So did you think at that point you were an addict, or no, not really?
In my head, I knew it, but I was not saying it to people. Like when my family would say things to me about, Tracey, like, look what happened with this accident, or even the things that I was doing. I was stealing. I was, lying before this accident and all. I did not want to believe it. Like, if I figured if I admitted it, then like I would be judged. People would make me feel like I'm less of a person.
So when you lived there, you're on the pain medication. Were you using beyond your prescription for the pain medication? Is that why your parents started thinking this? And okay, so you needed money to buy stuff beyond your actual prescription.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
How would you get money to buy more at that time?
Stealing. There was so many, or I pawned things that I had. That pawn shop like knew me by name because I would go in there with something different, or I would steal things from my family, friends, anyone I could get something from, I would do that.
What other drugs were you buying besides? So you were prescribed Percocet and then you were buying oxys, or what were you buying on top of?
Oxys and crack.
Oh, okay. Okay. So see, this is why.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. This is my job. So when does crack come into the picture?
Crack was kind of not always in there, but it would come in randomly. But like, I wasn't a crackhead, right? So like, I would just smoke it once in a while when like we didn't have Coke, like, when someone would mention it. But then after my accident, my ex liked smoking crack, and I would smoke crack with him. And then I started liking it. So after my accident, I got a lot worse on it. And I would have this guy bring it over to me after I would steal. There was one time I was stealing checks from my uncle, and I would walk up to TD Bank, cash them for like $100, and then walk back and get the crack. That was like what I was doing. Absolutely. Because I wasn't working. Because after the accident in 2009, I did not work up until I got clean here.
And how long of a period is that?
And that's 13 years.
Oh, you never work again until you're working at the place I'm seeing you sitting right now?
Yeah, well, there was another treatment facility that I worked at in St. Louis before I started working here. But yeah, before I got clean, I did not work. I hustled people or I stole. I did what I needed to do to make sure I got money.
What year do you get clean?
In 2022, September 5th, 2022.
So from 2009 to 2022, you don't have a job again. Wow. Okay.
Like I said, I did some like Craigslist things where like I would like do like yard work and stuff like that, but
But
like
no
it
like
wasn't ever a
actual
job.
job, right? Okay. So you're still living at home, and would your parents know you're smoking where you smoke crack like in your bedroom? I mean, did they know?
Yeah, no, they did not know.
Okay.
The one thing about, and I hate when I say this, is like when I would smoke crack, I could smoke crack and then have a conversation with you. I wasn't that paranoid at the window, like that wasn't me. I could smoke it and then go have a conversation with someone about whatever. So it was never known. They knew about the opiates.
Did you stay with that guy? Did you guys stay together after the accident?
Yes, we like for about a year and a half. We had been together since I graduated. We were together for almost 10 years at that point. He left about a year and a couple months after the accident, and he went to treatment in Florida.
Were you mad at him for that accident?
Yes. So for that, until I got clean, to be honest, I was angry with him. And, I'm like, how did nothing happened to you? I would make him feel bad. I would manipulate the fact that he was driving and blame it on him. And when I know today, we both, I made that decision, and that he has to live with a lot of pain because of things that I said.
What would his response be? So you guys would be like hanging out and you'd be giving him a hard time. Did he feel bad or was he combative? Like, what would that dynamic be when you would start saying that stuff?
He would feel bad. He'd be, I'm sorry, but that didn't stop me from, saying those things. It was more manipulation to either get another rock or another, sniff of some oxy. It wasn't, just to make him feel bad. It was to get something for myself. And I never saw it, and I'm grateful because he is clean. Yes, he's still clean. He is actually he's the person I called from Kensington to come get me. And he came and
Wow.
got me. Yeah. He's helped save my life. He's like one of my best friends.
Okay. Wow. That's really cool. So does he stay clean from the time we're talking about on? I mean, does he have like 10 years now? Oh, wow.
He has 14 years clean now.
Oh, that's
Yes,
wild.
I
Okay.
know.
So who leaves first? Does he go to treatment first and then your family makes you go, or do you go to IOP first?
I had went to IOP. Obviously, that didn't work right away. And then we were smoking crack, and it was right after my brain injury. And it was just we were rolling on ecstasy, like with this brain injury. And one night I had smoked crack. I thought I needed more, right? So, and it was the middle of the night. So I like army crawled into my parents' bedroom so I could get money, right? And all of a sudden I was in their closet and I heard my father get up. So, and in their closet, it was like clothes all over, being hung up. So I like hid behind the clothes and he opened up the closet door and looked in and I'm hidden. And all of a sudden you see the clothes move and I just look at him and I'm like, hi, daddy. Like, what? And he's like, get out of my closet. And then I come out and he's like, get out, Tracey, get out of this house. Like, you are not welcome here. And at that point, I had nowhere to go, and I grabbed like a bag and I left the house and I went outside the house and I sat across the street. Like I didn't have a cell phone. I had nothing. So I'm sitting there and I'm just crying. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And my father comes out with tears in his eyes and he's like, I don't know if this is your brain injury or if this is your addiction. And I manipulated that, of course. And I was like, I don't know, Dad. What am I going to do? And he said, just get inside. And what do you think? I went inside and I continued doing what I was doing. And then about a week or two later, my father and they were like, you need help. but we didn't know about rehabs at this point. We knew about the IOP, but they knew that didn't work. So they sent me to Ohio to my aunt's house, who had a substance abuse problem, and she stopped using. So they were like, she'll be able to help her. And in that time when I was gone, my ex went down to Florida.
Okay. That's when he gets clean for the rest.
Yes. So I remember talking to him right before he left, and he was like, Tracey, I love you. We've been together for so long. Like, it's me and you. Like, I'll be back in 30 days. So I'm expecting him to come back. Like, it's going to be good. Like, I'll stop using. We'll be able, like, this will be good. Know anything about anything at this point. And 30 days later, he didn't come back. And I had this sense of abandonment. I took it as, because I have these scars, he doesn't want me. I'm not beautiful anymore. My head shaved. I looked like a dude, which I didn't, but like, you know, how our heads can talk to us. I thought it was me, and I didn't realize that he had to do this for himself.
So did y'all break up while he was there, or did he just kind of stop talking to you?
He just stopped talking to me.
To be honest, I actually did that too. And I don't know if I've ever shared that this is exactly what happened, but I had like a guy that I did all my using with. And I went into detox and he moved back to where he was from. And I was supposed to move out there with him. We'd gone to jail at the same time, but he stayed in longer and got completely detoxed and moved. I was still using, and I was supposed to go move with him after 30 days of detox and rehab here in San Diego. And I just never went. And I just slowly stopped talking to him. And we'd been together for a long time too. And that's how I did it too. I didn't know what to say. We did speak a few times, right? But like, I would just avoid the question. And that's kind of why I asked. So that's what he did too. He just slowly stopped talking to you.
It hurt. It hurt. But honestly, it was what I needed. You know, I didn't realize it then, and I didn't realize it until I got clean. And I don't blame it on him. He had to do what he had to do. Not only was it for him, but it was for me, because we were toxic for each other. You know, he's one of my best friends now. Like, every time I go back home to visit, he is always there. He comes to my family events. Like, I love him. My family loves him. You know, I'm grateful for him, but it was what I needed. But that didn't stop the feelings that I felt. And, you know, so I got into some pretty messed up relationships after that.
In Ohio?
No, I actually was only in Ohio. That was like maybe 2 weeks. I looked at my aunt and I was like, fuck you. Like, I'm going back home. And I took a bus back home. And when I got back there, she had told me about Narcotics Anonymous meetings. So I'm like, maybe I'll try that. So I remember going to my first meeting, and I walked in, and then people started sharing, and I was like hearing these things that they were talking about. And I was like, what is wrong with these people? Like judging, like that's literally, I was like, I've never done that. Like, I'm not that bad. Like, I can still do this because I would never do these things. Right. That was 2011. From then until 2015, you know, I would go to meetings. In 2012, I started going and getting more involved, but like still getting high, but like making the friends that like were clean, but like not being honest. I got a sponsor, but just she was by name, right? So like when someone would be like, do you have a sponsor? I'd be like, yeah, so-and-so is my sponsor, you know? I mean, I was getting high the whole time. I would get high and then go to meetings, you know? And I just thought one day I would just not want to get high. You know, I didn't realize, you know, the insidiousness of addiction. I just thought one day I won't want to.
You know, it's interesting. I don't know many other people that did that. I did that too. I actually, there's a lot of similarities actually in our thought process. When I first went to a meeting, same thing. My first meeting was a CA meeting. And they were talking about, you know, it's primarily crack, or it was in LA. And they were talking about all things I ended up doing later. But I was like, I'm not that bad, whatever. But then like later, when I was in NA, I did kind of want to be clean, and I would go to meetings, and same thing. I think I just kind of was hoping that at some point it would like settle somehow through like osmosis it would work, you know?
Yep.
But like, so where were you living and working? And when you were going to these meetings after you went back from Ohio, did your parents let you move in with them or did you have to? Well, they must have because you weren't working.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I up until a few years before I got clean, I was staying with my parents because I was my mother's caretaker. I'll get into that. At this point, I was staying there. But in 2012, from that car accident I was in, I ended up getting a lawsuit. So then all of a sudden I had some money and that did not work out well because I do not have any of that money anymore.
Damn. Was it like a lot? Was it a lot?
A lot. Yes, it was a nice amount of money. I wish I had it.
Dang
But it's
it.
okay. It's okay. It's okay. I did buy myself a car, but then I ended up totaling that car. But like I learned a lot, but it's okay. So I got that settlement and I was just buying drugs like crazy. At this point, I was doing, because they changed the oxys to the OPs and you could not sniff them no more. So I didn't want to do them. So I went to 30s and I could do them. Well, then I was around the wrong person and he was going to Camden at the time. And he's like, hey, and I knew he was going to get heroin, but like, he's like, I'll give you $75 if you take me. It was like literally a 30-minute thing I had to do. Drive him there, drive him back. Like, come on now, that's easy money. So that's what I did. The first 2 times, I was like, listen, I got to go get my 30s first and then I'll take you. He's like, cool, let's do it. But the third time we do it, my 30 guy didn't answer. And I'm like sick, I'm sick. And he's like, I got to go, Tracey. So I'm like, all right. So we go there and he gets the dope. And I'm like, so what's it like? And I started asking questions about the heroin. And he's like, here. And he throws me 2 bags. And I'm like, I was sick. And that feeling where you're just like, if something's got to make me feel better, right? So I remember, and what's crazy is like, I'm driving up, getting onto the highway and I snip a full bag. Like that could have like killed me in that moment. And Lord only knows what happens, but we do these things, right? So I sniffed the bag and it was like, oh my gosh, like, within a few minutes, I was starting to feel better. And I was like, and this was $5? Are you kidding me right now? I was spending $25 a pill at that point. Like, so at this point, I'm like, well, I'll just do dope when I really can't afford it, because I don't want to be a dope head. I'm not a junkie, Even though I'm doing these things, I still don't think I'm a junkie because it's a pill and it's made in a lab and just that BS we tell ourselves. So take this guy and go get his dope. And then one day I'm like, introduce me to this dude. And he's like, okay. So what do you think? I cut that guy off because now I can just go straight to the dealer. I don't need you no more. Then I started doing heroin, all the time. And in my head, it wasn't as bad because now I'm not putting a needle in my arm. So, okay, fine. Now I'm doing heroin, but I'm not a really bad junkie because I'm not putting a needle in my arm. Like that's a junkie, And that lasted for a few years, about 2.5, almost 3 years. And then in 2015, in between all this time, I went to a couple treatment centers up in North Jersey, Westchester, Pennsylvania. I had went to Florida once. I went to a bunch of different treatment centers.
Did you think you were an addict internally? Did you think you were an addict?
I was, each time I went to treatment, I was believing I was, but I did not think that my life was going to be any different. When I was younger, when I was 18 years old, I was told by my gynecologist that I'm not able to have kids. And growing up, I always thought I would be a wife and a mother. That was like my dream growing up. So when that was said to me, it was like, what is it? Like, it doesn't matter if I get high and fuck up my life, right?
Was she right? Was that true? You actually, you aren't able?
Yeah, no,
oh, okay.
no,
All right. Okay. Okay.
no.
Wow.
So, and that kept me sick for a very, very long time. And it's still, to this day,
No, when you said it just now, when I asked if that was true, I can tell it's still,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, I'm
It
so
it
sorry.
sucks. Thank you, sweetheart. I'm not okay with it, but I'm okay with it. I know God has a purpose for me. Maybe I think I'm too old to adopt, but like maybe one day, who knows? And there are older kids, that need someone that loves them, and even if it's not, I'm going to try to be the best person I can for the world, because our world needs good people. It doesn't just need good mothers.
Right. Yeah, I know. You're right. You're right. But having that dream gone, I think that's something that so many people can relate to. Like, regardless of what it is, you've got this thing that feels like it's like you're calling on some level. And it's like, well, then why did I even want it so bad if I wasn't ever even going to get it? You know what I mean? Like, it just seems so, it's just so upsetting. And I can see why that kept you embroiled in this use for so long, because it's like, well, what's the point? I can't do this thing I really wanted to do. And I'm sure that played into your feelings about, well, who's going to end up wanting to be with me too if I can't have kids, right?
Facts. Yes. That was because, like, not guys don't, they want kids, but like, they want this woman that can be a mother, and like, I'm more old school. My mother, yes, she worked, but she took care of the family. My father worked and he took care of the house, like my mother like raised us. So that was what I grew up with. And my grandparents were married, and that's how it was with them. My aunts and uncles, like that's kind of how my family is. So it's like you get married, you have a kid, and that's just life. And I didn't have that, in my head. The man that I loved for 10 years, almost 10 years, left me. So there's now, that's that first dream of now in my head, no man wants me. So what's the point, And then now I can't have kids. So there's two things that I thought I was going to have that now I'm like, I'm never going to have, is what I was telling myself.
Yeah. That Camden scene in New Jersey. So, for those of you guys listening, Amanda, who was on the Dr. Phil show, that's how she got sober, she was talking to us about Camden. And I love the show The Wire. And I asked her if it sounded like it's kind of like The Wire, like jump out boys and dope boys and like all the stuff that they say. Did you have any what were your Camden experiences? Did you ever have anything really crazy happen? Did you get arrested? Did you have to run away from anybody? Like, was there any crazy Camden shit that happened?
Yeah, for me, it was, not Camden. No, my crazier things happened in
Oh,
Kensington.
later. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
my crazier things. When I was going to Camden, I was meeting a specific person. I wasn't going to the blocks in Camden.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
if I was with someone that was going to a block, this was when I was still like a baby in the drugs, not in the drug scene, but like going to go cop on a block, that like other people went and did it. And they were probably beating me or whatever, you know what I mean? But like I would give them the money and I would wait in the car and they would go do it. That crazy stuff didn't happen
Until
until,
later.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you're in Camden for a few years, or you're not in Camden, but that's where you're going to pick up. You're just snorting for a few years. I'm assuming at some point you moved to Needles.
Yes.
How does that happen?
In 2015, I went to another treatment center. This one was in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So I went to this treatment center. Mind you, right before then, let me back up a little bit. So I was going to Narcotics Anonymous. And that year I was taking Suboxone, but I would get high. Like I would not take it and then get high. So in my head, I was doing good. So I wasn't getting high every day, right? So in my head, I was doing good. So I would celebrate 60 days, 90, like all the clean time little key tags they get out. I'm collecting them. At this time, I'm working steps, but I'm lying because everything I'm writing on my steps is what I think my sponsor wants to hear, right? Or like to make me sound good, not get vulnerable, like just doing like, the action, not doing the action, just like making other people happy. So July 25th, I celebrated a year clean. I went to an NA meeting. I spoke at the NA meeting, was not clean at all. I actually got high before the meeting. And I'm sharing from behind the table about how the program works and you do the things and like life gets better. Mind you, my life was the same as it was a year before that and a year before that. You know, I was still doing those things. That night we left. A bunch of us went to go eat to celebrate my year.
Oh no.
And I know, this is crazy. So we left and I start texting one of my dealers and I'm like, hey, I want to celebrate. Bring a bundle to my house.
I want to celebrate my year clean. Can you bring something to my house? Okay.
Yes. Like what? So yeah, I did that. Well, I just figured it would be once, right? Like we think it'll be once, and it wasn't. And that was like probably like a 2 week run at that point. And my friends, because I was I was going to a lot of meetings and talking with a lot of people, they knew something was off. So one day my sponsor picks me up and we go to her house and a bunch of my friends from the rooms are there. And I'm like, what's going on? So I sit down and they're like, Tracey, we need to talk. And I'm like, they had an intervention for me. And they're like, we know you're using. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, how dare you? You know, like, and they knew. And I'm just sitting there, like, looking them all in the eyes. And I'm like, and then finally I was like, all right, guys, I'm getting high. And they're all like, we'll help you get into treatment, Trace. So they ended up finding me a scholarship to this. It was called Rise Above. It was a treatment center out in Westchester. And I went to Eagleville, which is like a detox in Philly, and did that detox and then went to this 30, I think it was a 30 to 45 day program on a scholarship. Well, I got there. It was a brand new treatment center. I was the third client. So I get there. They have no like housing or like a treatment facility. We slept at the Days Inn, and then we went to like a facility. It wasn't even a facility. It was just like a store like that they just bought, and they turned the building into like a little IOP building type thing. And there was this guy there, and he was the first client and I was the third. And the second client was this older lady that was an alcoholic that me and this guy had nothing in common with. We were both opiate, fentanyl. Well, at this time it was heroin addicts at this time. And of course I met him. We had this trauma bond. It was 3 clients. So we talked for 24 hours. It felt like I knew this guy. I knew everything about him. And like, I fell for this guy right away. So of course I've never hooked up with anyone in treatment, but that time I did. Or I think I did 35 days there. And I remember the day I left, I was like, hey, like if you ever, like if something happens, you need something, call me. Like I'll be there. I got out of treatment. I used right away. I popped a morphine pill because I didn't do any work. I just was abstinent from a drug that whole time. I didn't do the work. So what do you think? About a week and a half later, he's calling me, hey, I'm getting kicked out of my sober living. And I'm like, I'll come get you. So I go and pick him up from his sober living, and he comes and stays at my sister's house. Because at this point, you know, I was still living with my parents at the time. So we went and stayed at my sister's house, and it was going to be a weekend thing. Well, that ended up being 8.5 years.
Oh,
We were
shit.
together. Yeah.
Is your sister still using at this time, or is she okay?
Yes.
Oh, she was still using too. Like harder drugs or?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were both opiates.
Okay. How does she have a house and a place?
Her husband.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So 8.5 years, do you guys now stay with your sister for the time being, or what happens?
In the beginning, we stayed with her because all 3 of us we're using, and we start with heroin. And I remember saying to him, because he was an IV user, and I was like, I don't fuck with needles. Like you can sniff it, but like we're not shooting it. And he's like, okay. So that lasted about 2 months. And I remember it was Christmas and we went to go visit his family. They live near Harrisburg. We went there and he was like, Trace, I just want to shoot up once. And I was like, again, I can be very codependent. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to shoot up too then. And he's like, no. And I'm like, I want to try it. And so what do you think? I shot up, and girl, I fell in love with it.
That very first time.
From the first time I put a needle in my arm, I did not stop until the day I got clean, which it was Christmas 2015 until September 4th was the last day I put a needle in my arm. Every day, multiple times a day, I put a needle in my arm. Like I had said, I'd been to Kensington a lot. Like I was more Kensington than Camden. I would go to Camden, but Camden's smaller. If you're white in Camden, the cops like to fuck with you. I did not like that. In Philly, it was not allowed, but it kind of is allowed, like the cops, they don't care, so I would rather have taken that little bit more of a drive than to get caught up, and go to jail.
Is this when you start going to Kensington though? Because I know you had gone a long time ago for weed and stuff.
Yeah.
Is this when you start going for more hardcore stuff?
I had went times before that, but it wasn't on a regular. So I started going on a regular right at then, we'll say I think it was November 2015. So going all the time. And I remember the fear that I had, I would see cops driving by or the things that were going on the streets and seeing people. And I just remember getting so sad, just how can you do that to yourself, and not realizing that that's going to be you one day.
What kind of stuff would you see that would freak you out? Or you mean back when you were younger and going, it would freak you out? Or now when you start going, it starts freaking you out?
Back when I was younger, it freaked me out, but it just felt like a different world, but it was cool when I was younger. But then when I was using heroin and I would go there, it'd make me sad because it was why don't you have a family to go to? Because I was still living at home and I didn't realize it. You know what I mean? I would just go there every day and I would go to different blocks and see the things that were going on. But I would see it then, I would go cop, and then I'd get in the car and I'd leave. And I was out of Kensington, it was different. It wasn't constantly in my face. So then we were together, we would go, it was literally, we lived to use and used to live like that. He would go to work, he would get off work, he would pick me up, we would go cop, we would come home, I would cook dinner for my family, and then we'd go to bed. And then it was literally that was our life, that was to get high all day.
Did you still have your settlement money at that time, or was he paying for everything?
He was mostly paying for everything, or I would hustle dudes. At this point, it wasn't, doing anything. I would just be like, oh, I need money for this, or I need money for this. But I would ask 20 dudes that I knew, and I would get $10, $15 from each one. So it would add up.
Okay. Just guys that you just knew from around, from meetings and shit?
Yeah. Not I'm a very social person. So I know a lot of people, I'm a very friendly person. That was one thing, even when I was younger, even I think from that whole being made fun of, I was not friends with just one specific group of people. It was nerd, popular, whoever, I would talk to you, I gave everyone a chance. So that kind of broadened my being able to ask people for money. And I had no shame in my game. I didn't care. I would ask you for money. And if you said no, okay, I'll ask the next person.
But at this point, it was just more manipulation. You weren't actually hooking up with anybody.
No, at that point.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
My mother had started getting really sick in 2018, and she was in and out of the hospital a lot. And then Christmas 2018, my mom was on a ventilator. It was just really hard. And she came home. And then by the end of January, my dad took her to the doctor, and the doctor said it was a lung doctor. And the doctor was like, there's nothing more I can do for you. I think you should call hospice. So we called hospice. They came and they were like, she's a candidate. And they took her off all of her meds. They gave her morphine and Ativan. And within a week, she died. Today actually is 6 years. February 1st is 6 years of my mom dying. So today's been a very emotional day to begin with.
Wow. Oh my God.
Just because I'm, miss my mother. And so I'm grateful to be able to be doing this right now.
Thank you for still taking the time today. Obviously, when I gave the date of February 1st for you, I didn't know that. I appreciate you still doing that. I really appreciate you sharing. And I'm glad that you just said, though, that it makes you grateful, too, to be able to share this on that day. I hope that's
absolutely. Because My mom never saw what what I've become, that it hurts because, my mom saw the hot mess that would get out of treatment and then use, and then all the things I did and the lying and all the bad things. So, now, I believe my mom is with me. It just, I can't physically see her, but there's moments in my life and more often than not that I know I would not be here if it wasn't for the strength that I know she's giving me. So she passes away. That was like my person, because I didn't have a husband. I don't have kids. That was like my person, right? She would always talk me up and, help me think through things. And so when she passed away, I didn't know how to live. I remember telling her, a couple of years before she died, I was like, you're not allowed to die because if you do, I'm going to get into that coffin and die with you. And I remember sitting at her casket at her viewing, and I just wanted to crawl inside and die. Something stopped me. I just couldn't do it. There was a lot of chaos after that, but I remember that moment now. And just, I know because I'm meant for so much better than to do what I was doing. So after that, I honestly don't even remember 2019 really. It was just, I would cry, get high, nod out, wake up, get high, just that same thing. The end of 2019, beginning of 2020, the fentanyl, because it had already changed from heroin to fentanyl, but the fentanyl started changing a little bit. It was seeming like it was stronger. Didn't know anything. They were saying it was carfentanil. At that time, my father said, Tracey, you and my ex-boyfriend, you guys need to go to treatment. I can't do this anymore because he knew what was going on. It was just, he was in his own grief with losing his wife of almost 50 years. He finally had enough and he's like, you need to get help. So my ex went away to treatment and I went down to North Carolina to a different treatment center. And it was like a 2-week program. Girl, the whole time I was there, I was like, I'm going to go home. I'm going to get high one more time. Like, I just want to smoke crack one more time. That's it. And I was manipulating people to get money. I took advantage of the fact that like these Southerners were so nice. They were like,
Oh.
"Oh my gosh, you need money to get your luggage back.
Oh.
Here's $40." I know I'm so horrible, right? But I ate it up, trust me. So, I came to rehab with no money and I left with like $160. Like, what? Who leaves rehab with money?
Right, right. So, did you consciously switch to fentanyl or did you just have to, or had you yet? Like, how did that start to appear in your world?
Actually, what's funny is we went to Camden one night and we were getting, the brown dope. And all of a sudden, my ex gets this shit. He goes with this guy. And I'm still at the point where I'm not going on the block. Like, you go, I'll stay here. And he gets in the car and he hands me a bag and it's white. And I'm like, what the fuck did you just get us? And then he's like, just do it. And he hadn't done it yet, but he's like, I was told it's really good. So, and I put it in a cap and I hit it with water and it turns to water. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what did you just spend our money on? And he still had to shoot me up at this point. So he does his shot and all of a sudden he starts nodding out. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I like start like hitting him, like, what's going on? And then he like kind of comes through and he was like, holy shit, that was so good. And I was like, oh my gosh, do it, do it, do it. Like excited. And I nodded out, right? He hit me and then I nodded out. I remember that night. That's how we were. He would do a shot and he would nod out and I would like hit him to like be up and then he'd wake up, do it to me. And then I would nod out and then he'd hit me until it was back and forth. That's how we were doing it. And then we wanted that stuff. And then
Did you know it was fentanyl? Had you heard that word yet?
no,
Okay, so what were they saying? This is just really strong dope. It looks different.
yeah, just really strong dope. And then we had found out from that guy that brought us there that it was fentanyl like a week or two later because we were still doing, regular heroin. And we were like, this is shit. Like, this is horrible. So we found it in Kensington and we were doing that. And that was from the beginning of 2016 until the end of 2019, the beginning of 2020. So I went to treatment in North Carolina. I remember I just wanted to get high one more time. The day before I was being discharged, I called home and he answers the phone at my dad's house. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing at my dad's? He's like, I AMA'd. He's like, I'm good. Well, he ended up using that night. And I was jealous. I was like, I want to be high. And I remember coming home from North Carolina and him being like, you're not going to get high. Like he said, I thought you said you were getting the Vivitrol shot. And I lied. And I was like, I got the shot and I was going to get high and not tell him because I didn't want anyone to know. And he shoved, I had naltrexone, the pill form, like in my room. I don't even know how I got it, but I had it. And he shoved it down my throat, like literally forced me to take it. And I'm grateful for that because that kept me clean for, a few weeks. But every day I was watching him get high. And at the same time, I'm smoking crack. So but I'm like, I'm not putting a needle in my arm. So it's better. I had so many different justifications about the way I was. It was just insanity. So at this point, we had gotten kicked out of my father's house. Not we, he got kicked out of my father's house, but I left with him because I love him. He's not going to be homeless. So we went and started staying at this motel. At first, I was paying for it, daily. And then COVID happened and they couldn't evict people. And we were
Oh.
staying there long enough where I received mail there. So they could not kick us out.
Oh,
Yes.
damn. I didn't even think about that. Okay.
Yeah. So, of course, I took advantage of that because, I was spending a lot of money. I would stress about because I'm like, I at least need to have somewhere to lay my head. I'm not going to be homeless,
How
right?
were you getting money daily for the hotel until COVID hit?
Then,
Oh, okay. When does that start? Or you're still just asking for money, or do you start
yeah.
actually? Okay, okay.
Yeah, no. At that point, I'm like, just come here. You can come and pay for it. And he'd be my ex would be up in the room and they would come pay for it. It was good people that I took advantage of. They were wanting to help out the addict, and I took advantage of them. And he would work also. But that money was, to use. It was literally every day going to Kensington. But then all of a sudden, the COVID money started coming, the PUA money.
Oh,
And
you got that too.
we both did. Yes.
Oh.
And we were not paying a dime towards rent. So we were getting very good money, both of us, and just using it all to use. So I remember one day we got a ride up there. It was an Uber. And the Uber's like, have you heard about the PUA money? And we were like, what? And he's like, it's free money, unemployment. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, fuck it, let's try it. And we both got it.
How much was it? It was like 500 a week or something, right? How much was it? Now I don't even remember.
Mine, I would get 600 from the government, like the federal, and then I would get 300 from state weekly.
So $900 a week.
900 just me.
Damn.
And then he got like another 859. It was insanity.
And you're living for free.
Yeah, and living for free, not eating.
Damn.
And then our food stamps got also because you're home, so they gave more money. So, and we would sell them because we weren't eating, so it was, and on Sunday when that money would hit, I would be waiting, sick as a dog, waiting for my phone to ping that my money came onto my chime, just insanity.
Were you guys Ubering to Kensington? You didn't have a car?
Yes.
Okay.
No, our car had broken down. And of course, none of the money we were getting, we were going to put towards the car. So at this time, the fentanyl started changing. It was like a lot stronger. We didn't know what was going on. And there was, in Kensington, there's different blocks that have better shit. And, from talking to people on the street, you find out, or, so we would go to these blocks. I was injecting it, obviously. And after a few months, I started getting these like bruises on my arms. And I didn't know what was going on. And I would get a bruise after I would inject. I would, nod out and then wake up and it would be like black and necrotic. And I'm like, what is going on? And I would like Google like what was going on with my arms, and crocodile would show up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my arms are going to melt off. And I didn't know. So my ex started asking people, on the streets. He had seen this girl that had wounds that looked like mine. And he's like, what's up with that? What is that? And she's like, they're trank wounds. And we were like, what? And she's like, yeah, it's the trank. And we're like, what are you talking about? This is carfentanil. She's like, nah, it's trank. And it was like, I was like, what? Like, it wasn't happening to my ex. It only happens to like, it doesn't happen to everyone.
Oh, I
It's
didn't know that.
crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
weird.
So yeah, I know it is.
Wait, why? Do they know why it affects certain people or not?
No. And I like, it's
Oh,
insanity, right? Like we were shooting the same thing and I'm getting these wounds and he's not. But I continued doing it. And we would go to different blocks thinking maybe if we get different stuff and the wounds are still coming on. Well, from this one chick, she said, well, I go to Prevention Point, which is a harm reduction place. They give out needles, and we had already known about them, but they do wound care. So I went there because at this time, my arms had, that my wounds were getting worse. Like this, my arm was just, I don't know if you can see, I got tattoos over it now, but see how, like, right here, this whole tattoo was an open wound at one time. And this whole tattoo was an open wound at one time.
damn. Wow. So they would spread and connect the wounds and just keep going and going and going?
Well, it would be like random spots of black, but this is and my story is it doesn't connect. So I'm going to explain my story on what happened with that. So these wounds started happening, and you go to the harm reduction, the prevention point, and they were debriefing my wounds. They were taking care of this necrotic skin. And I remember them telling me about it, but I automatically thought ketamine because trying, I'm like, ketamine,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
That's for humans. Okay, cool. Like, whatever. Again, when I tell you, I just did not think I could stop using drugs. So I just had no hope. So I was like, this is my life. I just have to figure, I got to work with what I have. So I was doing the wound care. Well, then one day I go to inject and the whole needle becomes one blood clot. And I'm like, holy fuck, something's wrong. So I looked at my ex. I said, I got to go to hospital.
Wait, you mean when you draw back, the whole thing becomes a clot that you can't push back in? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So
It's been so long. That's actually good. It's been so long since I clogged a rig. I didn't even know for a second what you meant. That's how long it's been. That's crazy. But now I know exactly what you mean. All right. Okay.
I went to the hospital and he couldn't come in because it was COVID and no one could go in the hospital. So I'm in the emergency room. They drew my blood. And within like 10, 15 minutes, two doctors come rushing over to me and they're like, Tracey, you're septic. You need a blood transfusion. And I didn't see the severity. I was taking pictures of the blood, like, oh, new blood, like, and they came to me and they said, Tracey, we're going to bring you upstairs. We're going to give you IV antibiotics. We might have to give you another one, but, we're bringing you upstairs. So I went upstairs and, within an hour or so, a doctor and a nurse came in. They treated me like shit. They treated me like I was seeking drugs. And I remember looking at them and I was like, your Oxy 80 wouldn't do nothing for me right now. I just want you to take care of my arms. And I pulled the IV out and I walked out of the hospital.
Oh,
Yeah. In
no.
that moment, I remember going back to that motel we were staying in, and my arms were, and I was in so much pain because when your skin is dying, it's not even a pain I can describe. It's just like, it was the worst pain I've ever experienced personally. I remember going back to the motel and I was like, I have to do something. And I remember at Prevention Point, when they would debrief the wounds, they would like cut off the dead skin. So that night, I went and grabbed a towel. I went and grabbed toenail clippers. I went and grabbed alcohol and I like cleaned the toenail clippers off. I put my arm over the towel and I started cutting off the black necrotic skin off of my arms because that was the only thing that could make it feel better. That was in 2020. I didn't get clean until 2022. And I was doing that for a little over 2 years of cutting the dead skin off. Like this arm, I don't see how it's like skinnier than this arm.
Yeah. Yes.
I lost like a lot of muscle. Like there's one point you can't really see it.
It's hard to tell on Riverside, but I can see where it's gone down, and you're obviously missing tissue.
At one point when I tell you, bro, I had bone exposure, I had tendon exposure, and I was still injecting into it.
Into the open spot, because well, I guess actually that's a good point. Could you hit your ankles and stuff, or were you still just only going into the same spots?
So I have a couple other spots where I have like small wounds. I would go into different spots and then it would kill that skin. So I'm like, it's already on my arms. Like I had no hope that I was going to live. Like I didn't want to kill myself at that point, but I'm like, I have nothing to live for. So why,
That also may have been kind of a good decision, because then what if it had happened to your whole ankles, to your whole legs? You did keep it contained. Now, you're lucky, you know this now, and I know this. You're lucky you didn't end up losing your arm.
I was close to losing my arm.
You had to have been. You had to have been.
I would, I stopped injecting into this on my left arm in the beginning of 2022, but I would go back and forth in cutting, I would cut this arm and then this one would need to heal. So I would go to this arm and shoot in this arm and then switch back and forth. And then I remember a friend of mine was like, hey, why don't you stop shooting in one arm and see if it'll heal? And I was like, okay, I'll try. So I just stopped shooting in my left arm and I just continued shooting in my right arm, and it did a lot more damage.
Oh, did your left arm start to heal or no?
Very, very slowly. Like when I got clean, when I came to treatment in September, it was still a whole open wound on my arm. So it still wasn't healed because the xylazine, it slows down the healing process on the human body.
So when you'd be walking around or getting in an Uber or whatever with open bones and tendons, what were people looking at you like, what the fuck? Or would you try to cover it? What would you do when you would walk around?
Okay, so that's the one thing that I'm grateful for. When I told you about the prevention point to harm reduction, they had told me, keep your arms wrapped.
Right. Okay.
I saved my arms by taking good care of them. Yes, I would be cutting off the dead skin, but then I would put this Meta Honey was like the stuff to put on it, and then I would wrap it with the wraps. So I constantly had my arms wrapped.
Well, I'm really glad that they told you that. I know that there are arguments on both sides of that. I mean, to me, there's no argument against harm reduction, but I understand intellectually that there are. But you can't deny the argument that, like, thank God they were there. You could have lost both of your arms if they hadn't been there to give you wound care.
Absolutely. I understand people that have not been in, needing harm reduction.
I get that too. It seems crazy to them. It seems insane to them. And I understand.
Like you're just enabling.
You're enabling. Yeah. I understand thinking that. I do.
Literally saved my life, and it saved me from having to have my arms amputated, because if I didn't have a spot that was safe, that was able to teach me what to do, I wouldn't have went to the hospital, because the hospital was where they treated me like shit.
Right.
They treated me like a junkie.
And what people don't and so like the next step on someone that doesn't get it is, so you would have kept using anyways, right? You wouldn't have stopped. And then if you lost both your arms, people like that tend to be looking at it from a fiscal point of view. What is this going to cost me as a civilian, good American taxpayer? A lot more if you're a double amputee. You know what I mean? Now you're of service in this industry and you wouldn't have been. You know what I mean? So again, I can get there intellectually where they're coming from. Obviously, it's just not what I agree with, knowing what I know now. But, damn. Okay, so you would keep everything wrapped as you would move around, and you're still getting COVID money.
Yep.
And so is
COVID money. Yeah. And we're going literally every day, sometimes multiple times a day, because, at that point I'm smoking crack along with it. So I need more crack. So I'm going back up there. And then sometimes it was like 2 times, sometimes 3 times a day, and it was lawless at this point because cops weren't like doing anything. The jump out boys weren't coming out. Like they would come out, but I'm not saying that the cops work with the drug dealers, but what's being told to certain people on when the jump out boys are going to come, people knew. So,
and jump out boys are the cops. Just so my people listening know, the jump out boys are the cops that hide nearby. Well, no, I only know because of Amanda, but they're the ones that hide nearby and then they pop out when you buy something, right? They're the undercovers.
yeah, they'll look like normal human beings wearing regular clothes. Sometimes they make themselves look like a drug addict and they will jump out on you in regular cars. They'll just be driving by. You'll be thinking it's a normal Toyota Corolla. And then all of a sudden they jump out on you and you're going to jail. But they weren't doing that at this point because the jails, they couldn't put people in jail because of COVID. So it was lawless in Kensington.
What a mess.
And yeah, it was amazing for someone that is using drugs. I remember the first time, because I went to Kensington, and the first time I actually got high in front of a cop, he was probably 5-6 steps away from me, and I was so sick. And the guy that was like the hit guy, like he would hit you in your vein when you couldn't hit, was like right next to the cop. And I was like, bro, like I asked him, I was like, yo, I need you to hit me, but like, let's go here. He's like, do you have a gun? And I was like, no. He's like, all right, I got you. And did it right in front of the cop. And from that moment, like, it was like that fear just like went away.
So I have 2 questions. One, what was the dynamic with you and the guy? Were you guys just so fucked up and nodded out that it was like whatever? Or was it one of these toxic, we're fighting with each other? Or were you guys just, because I would imagine actually it's toxic in the dynamic, of course, but you probably weren't fighting that much because you both have money and you both have dope. And that's usually what leads to the toxic heroin junkie relationship fights.
So yes, I love that guy. We were each other's everything because our families wanted us to get clean, and like we weren't doing that. And we, fed off each other. But when we didn't have money, he never hit me. I put my hands on him a couple times. I never thought I would be that person. I ended up being that person after smoking crack for like 12 hours. I became that person. There was a time we were in Kensington and we were driving, and I just wanted to go get crack. I was sick also, but I wanted to get my crack. And he went, and we only had $10, and he was getting a bag, and I was just going to get a rock, which just sounds so crazy. But I'm like, okay, let's go to the set now. It's my set. And he's like, no, we're just going to go to, because we were strapping at this point. This was later on.
What does that mean?
Oh, we would like go steal metal. From
scrapping. Okay, sorry. I thought you said strapping.
Oh, no, sorry.
And I was like, I don't know if she means strap-ons or gun straps. Let me just clarify. Neither. Okay, that's good. Strapping. Got it.
He's like, no, we're just going to go to the scrapyard. And I'm like, motherfucker. And I grabbed the wheel and I crashed us into a car.
Oh, no.
Totaled our vehicle. Yeah. And that was like my insanity. And I'm like, fuck, like did not think that through, right? Now we're absolutely fucked. Like, yeah. But the things we do, right?
Yeah. The other question is, did you guys get like robbed? Did anything bad happen to you during this time? Or were you with him so it wasn't as bad? Like,
so we had gotten beat from like the black boys a couple times. There was one time I remember this dude beat me. And I didn't realize it at first because I would get it and put it right in my bra. And then I'd walk to the car. I never walk into the car to him. And I handed it to him. And he's like, what the fuck is this? And I look at it and I'm like, he like takes off in the car to go find this dude. Mind you, this is this big, like probably like 6'3" dude. I get out of the car and I'm like in this dude's face, like, give me my fucking money, screaming. And he like lifts up his shirt to show me his gun. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Shoot me. And I'm like, we're in the middle of the street, right? And I was just so dope sick that I was just like, I didn't care.
So what had he given you? Not dope, like mud or dirt, or just not a lot?
I think it was like salt. It was like baby powder. It was shit. It was not anything that would have helped.
And to clarify, what you mean by beat is you get ripped off by the middleman, not beat, hit.
Well, no, this was actually one of the block boys. Like he was selling on the block.
Okay, but by beat, you don't mean physically hit. You mean beat, like you get, yeah. Okay, you get like conned by the amount.
Yeah, the one thing I can say is I fought some people, but being beat like that, no, I have not been. I've gotten, towards the end, I fought this chick in the middle of the street, like for a spot. Like she was trying to sell on this block and I was on this block and she's like, oh, white girl, get out of here. I was like, I don't know who the fuck you think you're talking to. And then we're both 85-pound chicks, fighting in the middle of the street. It was just not even right. Yeah.
Fuck. Okay, so you guys are living in this motel. Your arms are a mess. And what starts to happen at some point, you also start hustling men trick-wise. When does that come into the picture?
So that came in closer towards my end. So we're still in this motel. The money, the PUA money, they stop it. So that's when we started scrapping and we were making good money. Like we were making almost as much money as the PUA money, but we had to go out and steal a lot of shit. But that was a daily thing we had to do. So in the middle of the night, we were going all over Philadelphia and stealing metal to, get high. That lasted until February. We were doing it with one of our friends because we didn't have a vehicle at the time. And our friend had ended up dying from a drug withdrawal in jail. He had a seizure, hit his head on the metal, and it killed him. It like caused brain damage, and his family took him off of life support, and he died. So that was like a brother to me. Yes, we were in addiction together, but like I love this guy. Like it really, I didn't go see him at the hospital, didn't go to the funeral, but that was who I was in addiction. And so when he passed away, it was, harder to get money. So I had to start hustling people, lying. I was like telling my father I needed money for this motel, like help me out. And still wasn't paying. Like, so now I was getting paperwork stating you have to go to court or we're going to evict you. So, but I was able to drag it out by the government did like a COVID rental assistance thing. So I dragged that out like 4 more months, right? Ended up getting some money from that. It went right to the motel, whatever, at least I still had a roof over my head. So then June of 2022, knock, knock, knock on the door. It's the cops and they're like, okay, get the fuck out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what do you mean? No, like crying, like.
Dude, that shit is the worst feeling in the world. That happened to me once. The sheriff came, we got evicted and we wouldn't leave. And when they knock on the door and you open it, I remember my ex said, all right, Janine, let's go. We got to go. And then you see the sheriff standing there and you got to get your shit, put it in a trash bag and just walk away. It's like the worst feeling ever.
What do you grab? Because like
everything is in there. Yeah, I had a lot of stuff.
I have 2.5 years of shit. And I'm like, but what do you think I grabbed? Needles, like the things that I needed to get high. So we got kicked out. Well, at that point, I went and stayed with this friend of mine and my ex was not welcome there. So he ended up going to treatment. So he went to treatment. I was his emergency contact. I knew he was in detox. It was a few days into it and I hadn't heard from him. So I called the treatment center and I'm like, hey, is so-and-so there? And they were like, no, I'm sorry. He AMA'd 3 days ago. And I'm like, what? Like, wait, what? Like 8.5 years and he doesn't call me the second he gets out. You know what I mean? Like he knows my phone number. So I'm thinking because my friend Danny had just died from the tranq withdrawals, like my ex is probably in a morgue somewhere, So I'm calling around to morgues and hospitals, can't find him. So just fear, right? But of course, I'm in Kensington, getting high, doing the same things I was doing with him, but now I'm by myself. And one day I go up there and I'm asking different block boys, like, hey, and I'm showing them a picture of my ex. I'm like, hey, have you seen this guy? And the one block boy was like, yeah, he was just working our block. Like, he'll be back. And I'm like, wait, what? He's out here? So I start going, looking around even more. And then all of a sudden, I come around a corner and I hear, hey, good looking, or hey, beautiful. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? But codependent Tracey, I'm like, babe, hi, I missed you. From that moment, I didn't leave him. I stayed with him on the street. I remember that first night, because even when I was living in that motel, yeah, I was homeless, but I wasn't. I had somewhere where I could lay my head down. I remember that first night I was in, they call it Needle Park in Kensington. And, I knew Kensington, but not like the ins and out of the alleys and shit. Like I was like in and out, or I would like chill spots, but like not where you do when you're homeless. And I remember I was on this bench and I got robbed. And that was the first time I got robbed. And I felt so violated. And I was like, I just wanted to call my mom. And it was like, I have no one, right? Like, yes, I still had family that loved me, but like, I'm like, they hate me. My mom is the only person she loves me no matter what, right?
Did you get robbed like at gunpoint or stab point, or you were asleep and they took it off while you're sleeping?
The thing with the trank is you look sedated. They might have tried to put a gun to my head, but they didn't have to because they could have like probably taken my sweatshirt off. I got robbed one time. I had a belly button ring and it was just like, it was a fake belly button ring, but it looked real. That was gone off my belly.
And you didn't remember it being gone?
Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. Whoa. Okay.
So I remember just feeling so violated, but like I didn't know what to do, right? But my man was there, so we just kept it moving, right? And like I was trying to hit people up that I knew to get money, and it was getting harder because I had to hit them up from like other people's phones. I had nothing. So we started going to different stores and boosting, which is stealing from the stores. And we would go back to Kensington and sell it on the streets. Everything was $5. It didn't matter if it was a $75 shirt. You could only get $5 for it. So we would go steal a bunch of stuff, and that's how we would get well. And in Kensington also, they give samples out on different blocks. So they'll give a sample out, which is, a taster basically, but it's a $5 bag for free. And if you go to 10 different blocks in the day, you got 10 different bags right there.
Okay. So that is like The Wire. They used to do that. They'd be like WMDs. It's like the name of the dope and they'd throw it out. Did they name the dope there too in Kensington? They did?
Yeah, they had different names. Like I remember this one block was Cardi B, and it was at a certain block. And like if you wanted Cardi B, you went to that block. If you wanted Uber, it was at this block. Adidas, this block.
Yeah, that's crazy. I wonder who names it. Like I wonder whose job that is to name it. You know what I mean?
Let me name this. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a stamp on the bag still?
Yes.
Okay. And it would be like the Cardi B stamp.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Was it a picture of Cardi B?
No, it was just a stamp of Cardi B.
Crazy.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
It is, right? And I just remember, doing different things. And I remember I was still smoking crack, but it was a little bit harder to smoke crack when you're out on the streets, but I would still do it. But then meth started coming out, there. I remember the first time I was like, I shot it. I did like a trank and meth shot. And it was like, it like perked me up. And I was like, and when you're homeless in this, neighborhood, you're not safe at any moment. You can't just like lay your head down for a 20-minute nap because like you're going to wake up and either something's going to be done to you, like raped, something, or everything's going to be gone. So, you have a fear, right? Like, and I never felt safe, like ever. So once I found the meth in the trank, I ran with that, and that's what I was doing from then on, but not sleeping. So, I remember, I would go to this prevention point, and I remember this guy that was he works in harm reduction and overdose reversal specialist. I would go and talk to him because he would make me feel human. He would be like, Trace, you got to get out of here and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. He'd be like, go to F in Allegheny. And I'd be like, yeah, I'll go later. I got to go get well, but then I'll go in a little bit. Never did, obviously. But he just made me feel something and felt loved. He would give me a shirt or food or Narcan, just just something, right? It was like a connection with people, right? Because I wasn't talking to anyone. I remember it was my 39th birthday. I was on the streets and I didn't call my family. And I remember this guy, he's like, it's your birthday? And I was like, yeah. And he grabs a needle and he like gives me some of his shot. And he's like, here you go. Happy birthday. And I thought it was like the best thing in the world, right? Like someone like cares about me. But I think of it now and it's just so sad, right? Like it just makes me sad.
What was that F in Allegheny? A treatment center?
Yes, it was prevention points. Like you could go there, and if you wanted to go to treatment, they would help you get into treatment.
Oh, wow. Even if you didn't have insurance or anything?
Yep.
Oh, shit. Okay. All right. Okay.
So, but I never did it, you know. So it was probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks before I got clean. At this point, I couldn't go into stores because they knew I was coming in there to rob them. Like would follow you around the stores, right? And I was so sick. And I remember walking down Kensington and just seeing the women and like I had no hope for my life. I remember walking down Kensington and like not screaming at God like out loud, but in my head, just like, why are you doing this to me? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Like how is this my life? Like people get these beautiful houses and all this stuff. And like, I just want to not do what I'm doing. Like, why? I know that I was given a choice to continue doing what I was doing or do something different. I just didn't think I was strong enough to do something different. So in that moment, I was like, well, maybe I could go up to a light post. I'll wait for a dude to pick me up. I'll get in the car. I'll say however much money and I'll beat him. I'll get the money and I'll jump out. I can do that. So I remember getting into the car. I went up to the light post and I got into the car and he took me it was like right around the block and he's like asked me how much. I told him and I'm like, I'm petrified. I remember just like, what am I going to do? Right. In that moment, I was like, I'm not worth anything. What does it matter? You know, like I remember seeing women that would do that, you know, on the side of the road selling their body. Like you're disgusting. Like, what is wrong with you? You know, in that moment, I didn't think I was worth anything. You know, no one loved me. You know, I'm not going to have a future. What does it matter? I was scared to die still at that moment. So I ended up the first time I sold my body.
So rather than take the money and jump out, you were like, fuck it, I'm already in here. I'm just going to do it. It's scary. Okay.
I didn't want to have him put a gun to my head and blow my brains out.
Totally makes sense to me.
And I remember when I got out of that car, for being a homeless person, I ran as fast as I could to the block boy and was like, I told him, give me, like, I wanted as much as he could get me. And I went and I got both from him. I got meth and the trank. I doubled up everything and I was going to kill myself. I remember at that point, it wasn't meth. It was supposed to be coke, but it was bath salts at that point because they changed it in Philly. It was bath salts. So I doubled up what I was doing so I could kill myself. I did the shot and right away I got excited because like I hit right away. I'm like, okay, this is it. And I remember I started seizing out and like ODing. And all of a sudden I woke up. Like the last thing I remember is I started seizing and I fell. And then I remember waking up and I'm like, I can't even kill myself, right? Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, and instead of being like, I need to do something different, right? I did that that was about a week and a half, 2 weeks. You know, I had done it. I'd probably say like more than a handful of times, you know, might have been a few more, whatever, you know, it doesn't even fucking matter, you know. I thought I was worthless. I remember on September 4th, I was broken. I was in like a psychosis from the meth and not sleeping and just the way I was living. And I was walking down Kensington Avenue. I saw this guy and he's like, what's up, ma? And I was like, hey, went over there and did our thing. I remember he threw down the $20 on the toilet. And I looked at it and I was like, this is all, now this is what I'm worth. Like the amounts went down, right? Like this is all I'm worth now. Of course, I grabbed the money and I remember I turned around because it was in this bathroom and I saw myself for the first time in 8.5 weeks. And I almost fell in, I was in shock. I was 85 pounds, could not recognize myself physically, emotionally, meant everything. I just remember looking at myself in the mirror and going, who the fuck are you? I was like, I really need to kill myself or do something different. Of course, I went and got high first, of course. And I started asking people, can I use your phone? Because I didn't have a cell phone. No one would let me use their phone because people are very mean to homeless people. And I remember this guy, he was amputated at the leg and the arm. And I saw him and he had a phone. I said, can I please use your phone? I got to get out of Kensington. And he said, abso-fucking-lutely. And he handed it to me. And I called Ed, my ex-boyfriend, that has 14 years clean. I said, I called him and he answered. And I was like, you need to come get me or I'm going to fucking die. And he's like, Tracey, I'm on my way. When he came, he actually ended up calling my brother because he had been in contact with my brother. And, they were all worried about me because they hadn't heard anything from me in 8.5 weeks on if, what was going on. They figured I was out in Kensington, but, they didn't know. So him and my brother came to Kensington to pick me up. My brother and him drove past me 4 times because they didn't even recognize me. And finally, after the 4th time, Ed was like, I think that's Tracey. And my brother was like, that's not Tracey. And Ed's like, I think it's Tracey. And he said he opened up the window and yelled my name. And I was like looking this way and they were like to my left. And I looked towards them when they said my name. He's like, he has since told me, he was like, Tracey, he's like, when I saw you, he's like, I wanted to vomit. I could not believe what I was looking at from the person that I knew when we first got together to what you had become. He's like, I did not know how we were going to help you. He's like, he worked in treatment in Florida. He's been around a lot of, bad, horrible stories. He was like, Tracey, when I saw you, I've never seen anyone look as bad as you. I had all my teeth had rotted out. So I had to have them all ripped out that year. So I had no teeth at this moment. So my face was sunken in. I hadn't ate basically that whole time. I would like drink liquids and that was like my food. Or if like harm reduction, like people would come out, people have family, they have their kids out there, they go there and like feed the homeless to like help. That's what kept me alive. That's why I get so angry when I hear about the mayor and the governor in Pennsylvania going against harm reduction, because if it wasn't for harm reduction, I would be dead. And many, many people I know would be dead. Like, I understand they think it's enabling, but they do not understand that like that connection with harm reduction is what saved my life. And, my friend Carlos that is still, does harm reduction out there is one of my good friends. We still talk. I love that man because his passion for helping people, because again, like I said, if it wasn't for that love that he showed me, I don't think I'd be here.
Totally. Yeah. Wow. So they come and get you. And well, before I ask you this, where's the guy? Where's the boyfriend these last couple of weeks?
That last like week and a half, he would just leave me and just go wherever. I don't know. I remember the last day, September 4th, he was like walked away from me. And I don't know if it was a psychosis or I like to believe it was a psychosis, but like I remember it like it's real. So like that's what happened, But I remember him walking away from me and he like disappeared into like a group of like homeless people. That was the last time I saw him. I left when my ex and my brother picked me up. I had left there and got brought to my dad's house and they didn't know what to do with me.
Your
right?
dad must have been floored when he saw you.
My father, when he saw me, he didn't cry to me, but like from what my Ed has told me, like you could tell his heart just was breaking, but he was staying strong for me. But he's like, as soon as you pass by, I'm like, tears just started coming down. And they didn't know what to do. But on the way home, I had said, if I could jump off this bridge right now, I fucking would. Like, I can't do this fucking shit. So at that point, they were like, we're going to call 911 and we're going to get you committed. We're going to say you tried to you're trying to kill yourself. And at this point, I'm like, whatever you guys tell me to do, I'll fucking do it because I don't know how to live. So this is how God works in my life. They called 911. This cop comes. And, I didn't like cops. Cops are dickheads, blah, blah, blah. This cop that came there was so compassionate. Like I was a hot mess and I was like afraid of judgment, because that's what has happened. And this cop came in and he's like, my family member's using and I can't get them to get clean. Please do this for yourself so your family, and he was like pointed to my family, can have you back in their life. And I just like heard it. I still didn't believe that I could do anything different, but it was like that first moment where I was just like, I'm just going to go with it. Right. And I went to the hospital into the psych ward. Thank gosh they gave me Ativan. I slept for 3 days.
I was just going to ask you, weren't you afraid to get sick? And did you start getting dope sex? But they gave you Ativan at least.
Yes. And with the tranq, there's nothing that helps that. But like a benzo, like they're giving ketamine out in Philly for like the xylazine withdrawal. So they gave me Ativan. So I would wake up, I would eat a little bit, and then they'd give me more Ativan. I'd fall back asleep. Like it was literally. And then, but what's funny is I woke up from being in this psych ward, and all of a sudden I look up and I see isolation, or what is it? Isolation, but it had another wording for it when you had COVID.
Oh, quarantine.
Quarantine, thank you. It says quarantine, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I got COVID, what I mean? So no one could come in my room.
So you did have COVID for real also?
Yeah. Yep. So I'm just like, this is my life, right? So I'm like, whatever. So 3 days go and I'm getting released and I still had COVID. Girl, I was sick. I was so just worn out. Like I think my body was shutting down, from how I wasn't taking care of it, the drugs. I didn't know if it was sick. I was just dying, inside, mentally, everything. So when they released me from the hospital, my family, I couldn't go to my family's house because I still had COVID. They're going to bring me to a motel. They're going to pay for it. The state's going to pay for it. I'm like, okay. Well, I knew the motel that they were going to bring me to. I was like, I'm going to get fucking high. Like, bet I got this. So I get to this motel. And that night, I remember I'm like, I'll do this tomorrow. So I went into the room. I fell asleep. I woke up and I open up the door and I'm like looking like I know there's drugs here. And I see this chick and she looks like, we can tell each other. Like we know we can tell other addicts. So I see her. I walk up to her. I'm like, where's the dope at? She's like, get in my room. So I go in. She's smoking crack. So she's not just like offering up her dope. And I don't have money. So I'm just like hoping she's going to be like, here's a bag, sitting there bullshitting with her. She goes to the bathroom. She comes out. I'm like, I have to pee at this point. So I go to the bathroom. I walk into the bathroom and I look down on the ground and there's 100 and like a bunch of 20s on the ground. And I'm like, what? So I grab it, put it in my, boobs. And I'm like, I got to get out of here because this is this bitch's money. Like I'm getting high. So I go to leave and I'm like, all right, girl, like I'll see you in a little bit. I'm going to go see how much money I can make, blah, blah, whatever. And I walk out of the room. And at that point, I have 2 family members that had came up to my room because they wanted to come see me and see how I was feeling. And I start shaking because I'm like, I want to go get high. That's all I want in this moment. I knew where I was at. It would be a long bus ride, train ride to get to Kensington. But if I had my brother take me to his house, it would be close to Kensington. So I'm like, I'm going to get myself out of here to get to there. So I talked them into bringing me home. And at that moment, I kept on pushing off because I felt like shit. But because of my drug usage, I had this peripheral neuropathy. So my feet were numb and my fingers were numb. So I couldn't walk. When I tell you I was most likely dying if I wouldn't have gotten clean. So I just had no energy to do anything, to get on the bus, to go to Kensington, to get high. I believe that like God like helped me because it was not by Tracy's power. Because if Tracy would have, like, I would have been gone because I was a runner. I remember my friend was like, I can get you this scholarship, Trace, out to this treatment center. He's like, but you got to do the work. And I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? He's like, you need to talk to them. You need to explain your story to them, and we'll see what we can do. So I called Salt Lake, which is the company I work for now. I explained that my insurance was a 4-week waiting list and I don't think I would have made it. And they asked me, I told them, some of my story, how I wanted to get clean and, blah, blah, blah. They were like, okay. I had to tell them about my wounds because at this point I had open wounds, and even treatment centers in Philly were not accepting people with wounds because that's like MRSA and, all these other things that you could get. They weren't accepting people. So I had to tell them about my wounds, and they were like, okay, well, we have to make sure that we can accept you into here. And I'm like, I'm probably not going to be accepted. I remember waiting an hour and they didn't call, nothing. And then all of a sudden they called, and I remember the lady, she said, Tracy, pack your bags. You're coming to Salt Lake. And I just started crying. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I'd done so many treatment centers. I didn't know how it was going to work, but I'm like, let's try something. And I remember driving out here.
Oh, you drove out or you flew out?
Yeah, I drove out.
How did they get you? Did they get you a bus ticket? How'd you get there?
No, my sister-in-law and my uncle drove me.
Okay, so you had to get yourself there. They just said,
Yes.
We'll take you, but you got to get here. Okay.
Yep. And I was detoxing. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible drive. And I remember I was going to get drugs. I was on day 6 when we left for St. Louis. And I was like, I'm going to get drugs at a rest stop. I'm going to get high because, like, who goes to treatment without being high, right? And I remember getting to the first rest stop, and my sister-in-law, because of my peripheral neuropathy that I had, she would help me walk. And I guess when she came to the car to help me out, she could read my face, and she's like, Trace, what's up? And I'm like, nothing, just get away from me. I don't want to embarrass you. And she's like, what's going on? Dawn, I'm getting drugs. Like, how can I not get high? I need to get high. We're on our way to Salt Lake. Like, just leave me alone. And she just looked me in my eyes and was like, that's not normal. I got so angry. I wanted to fight her in that moment because that was normal for me, right? Like, I was used to going to anywhere on blocks and getting drugs. But I think of it today, that is not normal, right? But in that moment, it was. So through each rest stop, she would hold my hand and we walked through the rest. I know. We would walk through the rest stop and go, that's not normal. That's not normal. And when I would see someone that looked like they could be an addict, I would get really loud and go, that's not normal. And it saved my life it saved me from getting drugs, on the way here.
Wow. Holy shit. So what day do you get there? How many days clean are you when you get there?
I was on day 8.
Okay. And you've never used again?
Nope.
Wow. So Tracy, first of all, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing on the date of your mother's passing. And you're right. The fact that you can share this phenomenal story is a way to honor her. You're right. That's true. And when you get there, what is different? Or where you are right now, you had been to treatment before. What's different?
I know you can get clean anywhere, but when I came here, the woman that greeted me at the door was in recovery herself. And there's people that work here that are in recovery, and they believed in me. They didn't even fucking know me, but they were like, Tracy, you can do this. And they listened to me. I just feel like it was my time finally, for my time. And I finally listened. when people were telling me to do things, I finally was like, you know what? I'm going to try that. I was planning on leaving here and going back to the East Coast, going back to Philly. But my peer support specialist, where I was in here, was like, maybe you should move into sober living out here. And I was like, I don't like bitches. I'm cool. And she's like, Trace. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. I'll give it a couple weeks. I gave it a couple weeks and I went to meetings. I went to AA, NA, HA. I didn't care what A it had. If it could help me save my fucking life, I was going to it. I now choose to work a Narcotics Anonymous program, but I still will go to other meetings and I do go. And I feel it helps me broaden my network of people, friends, that are in recovery that help me if I'm going through something or if they're going through something, because for a really long time, I thought I was alone. I thought, no one understood the things that were going on in my head. But now that I've learned and I've talked about things and, I've worked through a lot of things that I know we're all a lot alike. We all have those crazy thoughts. But today, I don't want to sit in it. I don't want to stuff that down and think, I'm this horrible person or you don't like me. You might not like me because I'm not as beautiful as you. No, we're both beautiful in our own ways, and like I had to learn that, because I did not believe that.
Yeah. Dang. Okay. So how long is the program there, the residential program?
It was a 30 to 45-day program. I got a 30-day scholarship, but then when my counselor had heard me share my story, they offered me another 15 days. So I stayed inpatient for 45 days. And then I went into their sober living. I did PHP which is partial hospitalization program, to intensive outpatient, to generalized outpatient. And I worked I feel I worked the program to the best of my ability. But I did PHP, which was 6 hours a day, 5 days a week for 15 weeks.
After your 45 days residential.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were essentially in long-term treatment. You just didn't live there. You lived in a sober living, but you continued to go every day. And your insurance paid for that?
I didn't have insurance. It was scholarship.
It was all scholarship. Okay. Okay. Wow. How did they start to take care of your arms when you got there?
So when I got into treatment here, they said, so what substance are you using? And I was like, xylazine, trank. And the nurse was like, what? And I was like, wait, did you just fucking ask me what I just told you? She's like, yeah, what drug is that? And I was like,
wow,
where the fuck am I right now? Like, and in that moment, when I tell you, I'm not a religious person, I'm a very spiritual person. And at that moment, I was like, okay, so this is where we're at. This is what we're going to do. So I explained to the nurse what it was. I didn't get any Suboxone, methadone. They gave me like a hydrocortisone. It's like a stronger Benadryl, basically, and they gave me Neurontin. And I took that while I was inpatient. And then I didn't take anything. I didn't have anything for the withdrawals. I went through it. I'm grateful today that I went through that pain because I remember that pain. I remember, and each time I went to treatment before, I was on Suboxone or methadone, and not saying those are life-saving meds. And I'm grateful that we have those meds, but I feel like they can be overprescribed. I feel if some people need them longer, absolutely. But I know personal reasons. When I was given it and given it longer, I abused it. This time, I just was like, I'm not taking anything. I had already been through the hell of the week before I got in here. I'm like, why am I going to take Suboxone or methadone that's going to keep me stuck on being on something? So I just didn't take anything.
How long were you sick and withdrawn? I mean, it's probably a while before you sleep, right? I mean,
it was about a month.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was about a month and it sucked.
Yeah, totally. And you still have to get up and go to group and do chores and all that stuff, it's like.
But to be honest, girl, like, and I know this sounds crazy, but like I tell my clients, like, I found a gratitude in I had a bed. I had food because there was not long before I was in here, I was literally sleeping on a sidewalk. I was doing things that I never thought I would do. So I was finding gratitude and I was alive, even though I was in pain. I just remember and this is from a lot of experience of being in the rooms and hearing people, say things. I may not have used those things at that moment, but I am using them today. And I remember, a grateful addict doesn't use. And I try to live in gratitude, trust and beliefs. There are days where I'm like, and I bitch about this and I bitch about that. But then I'm like, bitch, you need to remember like where you were, like, cause you can easily go back there.
Dude, same thing. Somebody said that a happy addict might use again, an angry addict might use again, a grateful addict will never use again. Somebody said that before I got sober for the last time. And at some point that like kicked in. And I think that's important to point out. All of those times that you were even going to NA and taking fake chips or whatever, you were still absorbing information and resources to some extent. I believe that. I hate that cliche, planting a seed, because I hate all the cliches, but it's true, but it's true.
It
So
is.
were you in pain from your arms? They hurt?
Yes, but it didn't hurt as bad because I had cut all the black stuff off. Your dead tissue is off your arm. It's not as painful, but it still hurt. But again, I remembered that pain of the dead tissue on my arms. So it was like this little bit of pain and shit.
Yeah. So you get a sponsor, right? And you start working steps. This is something I ask people sometimes. Actually, I should all the time. I feel like I always say I ask sometimes, but I ask pretty much every single week. Do you have a favorite step and why, if you do?
Oh, wow. I mean, I kind of love them all, but what's funny is I just went to a meeting last night and it was on step 11 about prayer and meditation. And forgive me, I'm not a guru on knowing the exact wording, but it's like through prayer and meditation. Cause I feel like before, I would pray to God, like, let the dope man get here, or please have the shit I need, or get me money. And, yeah, that was, back then. And today, like, I pray for others. I still can be a little selfish one where I will pray for myself, but I'm able to get that answer today. Almost 2.5 years ago, where I was to last week, I went on my first cruise to Mexico.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Who'd you go with?
Yeah. Well, my best friend and our other good friend.
Oh,
And
cool.
I was on this cruise and I was sitting out on the balcony and there was a rainbow and it came from one side of the ocean to the other. And I was like, that was my mother and God like showing me like it's okay, and I felt my mother with me. Like I literally just like put a post last night of like, I know my mother sent me that rainbow in that moment. Like I'm in the exact right moment, in the right spot, things might seem tough or you can't handle them, but like, I know I can, it's just, I've found for myself, talking to people. I am grateful for the willingness and that desperation that I had when I got out to St. Louis, because if you were willing to listen, I was going to fucking talk because I did not want to hurt no more. I I had kept so many things down because I didn't want you to judge me. That's why like I'm able to share the things that I've shared on this video so far, because you wouldn't have heard me say this 2.5 years ago because you're going to judge me. You're going to think I'm a disgusting piece of crap, whatever, whore, whatever you want to say. But no, that's addiction. Like that is where it can bring you, because years ago, I was that person that judged women that said that. And I became that. And I want others to know that like you can be that person, but like if you're willing to do things different and, try things that are suggested, and that, loving yourself, even though it's really freaking hard some days, that like it does get better. And today, like I love myself. I've been single for 2.5 years and I'm learning to love myself at almost 42 years old.
It doesn't define you. I remember there was this movie, Finding Amanda, I think it was called, and it was yeah, she goes to Vegas and they have to go find her. There was this moment, this was pre-heroin addiction, this was just post-coke addiction, things were pretty bad. She was talking to her uncle when he found her, and she said she'd, been in a bathroom. She'd gone to do sex work at a party or something, but then one of them like raped her in a bathroom or something like that. He came on her face or something and walked out. And she said, when you're that person that's been on the floor, you're never going to be anything else. And I remember sobbing, crying, thinking that that was true and that I was that girl on the floor and that I would never be anything else. And I was so wrong. That's not who she was in that moment. That's not who I was. That's not who you are. Something that you do is different from who you are, and it doesn't define you, and you can be completely different. And it is unbelievable to me what a testimony this is, that you went from sidewalk in Kensington to 2 years later, cruise in Mexico seeing a rainbow. Like, you did that after all those years of active addiction. You, with your hands, pulled yourself out of a gutter, and you did that. And that means that other people can do that too. And you were 40. You were 40, and you fucking did that, dude. Like, I'm so grateful that you shared your story today. And I'm so grateful that you're alive. And I really hope that you stay so proud of yourself, because as the years pass, you get a little further away from it. And sometimes even I forget, and I never thought I would ever get far away from it ever, because I've got a really good memory. And even I forget sometimes, like, at 10 years, like, a lot has changed. I don't even know I'm getting emotional. I don't usually get emotional during shows. I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of you.
I want to say that you have been an inspiration to me. I've seen, your journey, and not obviously for the past 2.5 almost years, but just seeing you live your best life and help people was so inspiring to me. And being so raw and honest about who you were in addiction and seeing who you are today is just inspiring. And I thank you, because there were many nights where I would be on TikTok and I would see your videos.
Really?
And, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And
so you don't mean, I thought you meant just like in the month that we met. You mean before
no,
this?
No. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's awesome.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, that's cool.
Oh my gosh. No, I remember seeing the video about you opening your, what is it? Is it not a gym? Is it like
my gym, the studio. Yeah.
Okay. And like seeing that, and like, it was just inspiring to me. And it was like, how do you go from that to becoming who you are, And you can do that. It's just small steps. And like, I can get there, it's just going to be a different, dream. And like today I have those dreams, like I finally believe anything is possible, where before I just didn't want to put a needle in my arm, right? Today I know that like I can do things that I once were impossible. So, and you are, and Amanda's one of those people, that I've seen online. That's why I've tried to share my story. Obviously not on as big as platform as you. I wish I had that, because that inspired me. And I've wanted to, helps inspire other women to, that this can happen, that you can change your life. And, I'm from the bottom of my heart, I'm very grateful for you. You may not know me, but I've known you and I've just looked up to you. So I'm just really grateful, because I feel like you're a part of my story in the middle of the night watching your videos. And, when I felt so alone out here in St. Louis, away from my family, and it was like another woman is doing something that like I never thought I could do. So I'm just really grateful for you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I appreciate that so much. And you will, you've only got 2 years. I didn't even start talking about it until I had 2 years. I was too afraid to tell anyone. The first thing I posted was at 2 years. I posted on Facebook. It also wasn't as much of a thing back then, right? The whole like sober, I don't really want to use, I don't love the word influencer, but like I get influencer, content creator, whatever. It wasn't really a thing. And so at 2 years, I finally posted for the first time. And I hadn't really done that yet. But obviously a lot of people now are going to hear this story. And where can people find you? I want people to be able to find your platform and connect with you and your treatment center. Where can everybody find you?
So I'm on Facebook, Tracey McCann. I'm out of St. Louis. I think it's on TikTok. It's Tracey McCann. Oh my gosh.
Like 4 or something.
Yeah,
I was looking for you. And you know what? I'll link it all in the show notes. I'll put everything.
I work at Sound Lake Recovery in St. Louis, Missouri.
Well, I So proud of you. I see amazing good things for you. You've got 2 years. Your arms are healed. You got to cover them with beautiful tattoos. I couldn't even tell because I looked you up, right? And I saw your some of the news. You'd been on the news and stuff, and I saw the pictures of the arms. And then when I was looking at you when you first got on, I was like, oh, I can't even really tell. Like it's completely. I'm sure in person maybe you can a little, but like
This one is completely covered up. This one, the skin, because it was closer to the bone. I have to go back over it. My artist is going to go back over it. I'm cool because for a while I judged myself. It was like the first thing you see is these big scars. They're not like little scars. They were huge. Like this whole tattoo was a big scar that like was my arm. And I judged myself. And it didn't matter if you judged me or not. I judged myself and I want to feel better. And having these tattoos have been life changing for me.
you'll also get to a point where that one part you'll later be grateful that you can show when you have 10 years, 50, because it gets hard for people to even believe, right? Like I worry sometimes people aren't going to believe me. Like that's one of the reasons why I want my mug shots. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't look like I lived outside. You know what I'm saying? Like fucking give me my mug shots, bro. I had picked up face everywhere. Impetigo had spread all over my whole face. I got it in jail to the point where my eye was closed. Like I want my pictures. And so you'll at least be able to see like, look, see, you know what I mean? Like this is how far I've come.
Ed, actually, my friend that came to pick me up in Kensington, took a picture of me. I was 15 minutes off the streets. He took a
Damn.
picture of me. And I would have been so mad that day if I knew that he took that picture. But today,
Aren't you so
that
glad?
picture, so glad. Like I will show the people that, I work for, the clients that come in and I'll show them a picture of those. That's not you. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. Like that is absolutely me and you can change. Like I promise
I'm
you.
glad he did that too. I've asked my mom, I'm like, why didn't you take a picture of me? And camera phones weren't as big of a thing, but she had one. And I'm like, why didn't you take a picture of me? And she said one time she almost did. She had to come pick me up to bring me somewhere, and I looked bad. I smelled because I had these open sores. I mean, I was like rotting away. And she wanted to take a picture of me, but she was worried I would freak out. And my ex was there too. He was in the back behind her. And she was like, I was genuinely worried for like my safety. If I took a picture of you, you were so unstable and so was he. Like I didn't know what you guys would do. And I'm like, that's fair. But I really wish
Makes
I had one. You know what I mean? Yeah, totally. So anyways, well, shit, dude, I've taken up like a lot of your time. Tracey, I can't thank you enough. I'm so glad. It was Amanda that connected us, right? I think
yes.
Amanda connected us. I'm so glad that she did. I'm so glad that you took the time today. And I'm glad your boss said, yeah, okay, you can do it even though you're here. That's good. They should be grateful for you. And it sounds like they are. That's
I'm
good.
grateful for my boss. Yes.
Yeah, good. You know what? I'm going to ask you one last thing, actually. For someone that is also at a zero hope place and has 40 days, 45 days, I was 35, you were 40 when you got sober. It doesn't feel like there's any hope at all. What would you say to a woman that just showed up, has done things that she didn't think she would ever do? She's got 40 days and open wounds and is like, what the fuck? Why am I even trying? What would you say?
I understand exactly where you're at. I felt the same way, but we need to hold on. I'll sit here with you and hold on that doing this alone, it's not going to, like, I was not able to successfully do it alone. Finding other women to help you, to hold you when you're crying, doing different things and really trying your hardest to show up for yourself because it does get better. It might get, feel worse before it gets better, but it does get better.
Thank you so much. This was great. I'm so glad I got to chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, sweetheart.